What's your best?
Yeah.
One nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, our first order of business is a public hearing. Take public comments, solicit input on mandatory proposed changes to the Arundel General Assistance Ordinance Appendices A for fiscal year ending June 30th, 2014. Anybody have any comments?
If you do, please.
Any suggestions on how to change the mandatory proposed changes?
If you do, please identify yourself,
Yeah.
your name and address.
Hearing none, then we'll close the public hearing, move on to our regular meeting agenda. First approval of the agenda. Any items need to be added, subtracted?
Not from me, sir.
Anybody else?
Make a motion, we approve?
Second.
Any second to approve the agenda? All in favor? 3, a public forum. Anybody want to bring a matter to the board's attention that is not already slated to discuss? See, just on it.
I thought I'd give you folks an update on.
You'd like to identify yourself.
I've been myself all week, hoping to continue as sane, not as your kindred. Our town-wide event on September 14th finally has an official name. We're calling it Arundel Heritage Day. Give all board members who are not familiar with it already a participation form and a letter that we've been gradually getting out. We are currently actively seeking participants, and we have 7 or 8 categories, including animal husbandry, natural history, entertainment, foods. We're going to cover as many bases as possible. We're also looking for sponsors to either donate cash so that we can support some of the things that we need to spend money on, or perhaps sponsors that might donate food or prizes or something along those lines. So if you think you know somebody who might be interested in being a sponsor or participating in the event or volunteering during the event itself, we're going to need to set up crew and a cleanup crew and a field crew during the day. So we're kind of hoping that everybody in town finds a way to participate in one way or another. So we'll try to keep you apprised as we go along. But so far it's small steps, but we're beginning to pick up some momentum.
Anybody else? Okay, move on. Approval of the minutes of July 8th. Any corrections, modifications? Did you see anything?
Motion to approve the minutes as written.
Second?
Second.
All in favor? Any board reports?
The planning board will meet this Thursday at 7 p.m. here in the library. The RSU 21 Facilities Committee meeting has been rescheduled to July 29th, 2013 at 7:30 a.m. in KES room A102. I was wondering how I was going to break this to you, but I won't be here for that meeting. I'll be in Pennsylvania. So if anyone is able to attend, that'd be great. If not, Jack Reeds is usually pretty good about giving me an update after the meeting has happened. And it is my understanding that Harriman and Associates will have cost projections available for MLD, Consolidated, and the final high school project at that meeting. That is on Monday, yes.
7:30 in the morning.
Yes, ma'am.
Those are, how long is it?
Oh, probably about an hour.
Let me see if I can,
Beautiful.
Okay, new business. Select need to approve and sign the 2013-14 General Assistance Ordinance Appendices A, which sub 4.
And all of the changes are indicated on that first page and the second page. Gives you the old maximum income and the new maximum income. And then if you scroll down to housing, a heated unit, those numbers changed slightly to increase the aid given to the people who need assistance. And I believe those were the only changes this year. And so this just increases the amount of money that an individual or a family can make to qualify for general assistance, and it increases the amount that they can be reimbursed if they live in a heated unit.
Any questions or comments, folks?
Does anybody know offhand roughly the number?
In our town, oh, there's, I would say, from listening to Wendy, there's probably a dozen families that participate in the program.
Any legitimate complaints about?
The amounts?
Yeah, I mean, has anybody ever?
We get people who are on the fringe quite often who do complain about, if it were only $8 more, I'd make it, but.
Just think I made a number.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Make us look good and us have a lot of community. But yes, occasionally we get those complaints because there are some people who are really close, and sometimes there's really ways to find them that assistance. Not expensive, just or stuff like that.
There are two sections. One is from July 1st to June 30th, 2014, and the other one is appendixes G through E, which is from October to September.
Yes.
So that there's two signature pages.
So you want two motions, then, Simone? To
Probably
approve
would be
appendices A and then...
appendices A, and then appendices G through E.
Yeah.
Probably.
Yeah.
You have originals over there, sir?
Entertain a motion to approve the general assistance ordinance appendices A for 2013-14.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Now a motion to approve the general assistance ordinance appendices B through E for 2013-2014.
So moved.
Second.
Any second? All in favor? Looking now to review and approve the town manager's recommendation of a list of appointments to the Comprehensive Planning Review Committee. And we're approving Diane Robbins, Sean Hayes, Dorothy Bridgewater, Ann Joyce, Philip Prince, Raphael Reiner. I note that we didn't make the cut now.
Well, I figured you didn't need to be.
I saw
You
that.
didn't need to be appointed because you're officially selectmen, but we can add the two selectmen to the list, Dan DuBois and Tom Danner.
Was my name on that list?
Your name, he
Did I
didn't,
miss?
Yes.
You weren't among the...
I don't have an
new ones.
application for you, though.
Yeah, you are on the list.
You
are
are
on the list.
Thank you so much.
You're actually on the top of the list.
Yes.
Well,
I feel comfortable enough to say, Donna, that I couldn't bring the granite stone with your application on it. Too bad.
thank you. Good check.
Couple of new names, that's good.
Yes.
Yeah.
So now the list is Lana DeKindred, Diane Robbins, Sean Hayes, Dorothy Bregwan, Ann Boyce, Philip Prince, Raphael Reimer, Dan DuBois, and myself.
Apologize for that oversight.
Raphael did not check comprehensive plan, all he checked was
She.
And I spoke to her on the
Raphael
phone.
up, sorry.
I spoke to her on the phone and she did agree to be on the comprehensive plan.
Motion to approve the appointments.
So, second.
All in favor? Okay, the next item C is to get selectmen's input and discussions regarding a preliminary space needs analysis diagram for a new town hall, prepared by Scotia Technics here. No, that's,
All right, so what you see here is what Ryan Senator, who's the architect working with Selectmen Technics, has provided after 2 different go-arounds with town hall, town staff, trying to make workflow areas work well, making considerations for expansion in the future. We do have a town meeting room, which will allow us to hold elections and meetings there, which also has storage. When you have a meeting room of that type, you have to have a male and a female restroom because of the capacity. So there will be a male restroom, a female restroom, a kitchenette, janitor's closet. There will be a shower and changing room area in the event that we turn the town hall into a shelter during emergencies, during disasters. It would be nice to be able to have that option. And so that's something that was taken into consideration. You'll see these big X's along the dotted lines. This will be a secured area, so people will come in through public entrance into an entry vestibule to save us some fuel. There'll be a lobby waiting area, and everything will be cordoned off so that people can't get into the sensitive areas. Only employees will be allowed past those X's. At the current time, and I haven't gotten this revision, it would appear that where you see adjacent to the lobby, there's a storage closet. We're planning to remove that storage closet and make an access window to the real property open office area, which is code enforcement planning and assessing. Those people will be able to be buzzed in if they need to meet with anyone in those in any of those departments. There will also be the ability in the sheriff's office to share that space, to use it as meeting spaces in the event that there needs to be private meetings held. Administrative open office area, that's where the clerks will do their work, register motor vehicles, issue marriage certificates and the like, collect taxes. There'll be a secure window with a roll-down gate that can be locked in the event of an emergency. The General Assistance Office, per state recommendations, will have a second means of egress, and will also have a separate entrance other than the public entrance, so that applicants are, at the will of the public and sitting out waiting to get general assistance and have people walk by. That's kind of a sensitive situation. So there'll be a separate waiting area right behind the General Assistance Office to keep those individuals' identities anonymous. Deputy Treasurer's Office, vault, break room, storage room. This is basically what we, as a group, I sent an email to everyone. All the employees gave us input as to what kind of space they need, what they saw could possibly be necessary for the next 10 to 25 years, looking out that far. That's why you'll see that center corridor that runs the entire length of the building over to the town meeting room. In the event of great expansion in the town of Arundel and we need more space, we'll be able to expand on that building by the way it's designed along that corridor. We don't want to run into, I've seen towns who are running into the inability to expand their town halls and then they have to repurpose the town hall and build another one. I don't have any cost estimates for you at this point in time. There's 5,800 gross square feet, so I guess if you went with $125 a square foot, which used to be average, Jason, is that everywhere near?
Residential might work, and commercial might go off a
Like
little
a little bit, so we're probably looking at $700,000 plus or minus for the building. As I said, this is just preliminary based on the space that the architect and the engineers feel that we need for a town hall with a population of 4,000 and having spoken to all the employees. And I'd like to have input, thoughts, questions prior to having the engineer do an elevation drawing to show us what it would actually look like and how it would be centered on the hall. Yes, Bob?
The bathroom, are they going to be handicap accessible?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, make sure.
Yeah, all three of them will be.
Yeah, all right.
Just at first look, it seems corridor challenged.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like getting to the coffee area, for instance, from the town manager's office. You gotta go through 3 offices to get there.
Yeah, that you do. That is basically for the security purposes. But yeah, to get everything centrally located with that coffee area was kind of difficult. Most of the stuff gets sent remotely to that anyway. And so, for myself, we're planning to have in the real property open office area their own printer copier so that they can do their work in that office without having to travel over to the copy area by the administrative office. But it was kind of a challenge to get everything situated and have everything centrally located because of that secure administrative office area.
You want your office out front?
Yeah, a lot of people don't understand that, but I don't have a problem.
I'm one of them.
To me, it looks removed from everything. That's kind of.
Well, I would have think you would.
That's what everybody. I'm not that. That's.
You want to run some defense here, right?
No, I'd rather them come in and I would honestly rather have them come in and attack me than attack any of the employees and things like that. So I have an open door policy. People are always welcome to come into my office and.
Well, do you have to go through a secure door to get to your office? Is that?
No, my office will be right off
Right
the
off the
lobby.
lobby?
But what I'm thinking is this door will lock. Because that was the contingency plan. Is this door locked so that in order to access my office, they would have to come be buzzed in.
Mm-hmm.
If we're doing, if I find that a lot of people coming in through that, coming right into my office, then that door will allow us to secure that off. But I've always had well, not always, but prior to being here, my office was the first thing we walked in. To me, that's part of what I do. People want to talk to me, and I don't need them to be bothering people trying to get in touch with me. So I don't have a problem with that.
Are there going to be windows into the vestibule so that both you and whoever's in the sheriff's office are able to see into the vestibule and see who's coming in?
That's a possibility. We haven't considered that, but that would be a bad idea. So we can see who's coming
That
out.
was pretty bulletproof.
At least bulletproof glass.
But that way, as a, you're seeing who's coming into that vestibule.
Yep, absolutely.
The question that I have, comment that I have is, and maybe that's a good thing, but, it's the town manager's office, interacts with all the different, and it looks like it's segregated. Is there any interconnect between the code enforcement officer and the planner? It looks like it's all,
That's more of an open space because of the files that they need, and then we use room dividers, kind of not a cubicle, but like a room divider in that space to be able to have them have their own separate spaces.
This is almost the same general idea as state,
Yes.
because when you walk into Jason's vestibule, I think wasn't the town manager right there on the left? And you look right into their offices, and then right straight ahead of you was the service window.
but kind of what Jason was saying before, and I know this is just a space view, but if you wanted to go to talk to the planner,
Yep.
your path is through the lobby down the hall, or is it?
Well, no, because there's another door here on the right-hand side from out of my office, and that would take me into that corridor right over to the
But again, it's down another corridor, take another corridor to the right, and
put a door between it. And that was a difficult thing is I didn't want to be buried back in the corner. That's just kind of the way I operate. We could have, very easily put myself at the deputy treasurer's office, move her up, and then have a general meeting area in that front space. But for me to be in the back, I'm more comfortable being able to have people the ability to access my office.
yeah, it's not whether you're the front or the back. To me, it's accessibility from all the different departments within that building.
Right.
It looks like you're all by yourself,
Right.
and maybe that's okay, but it's.
Once you're in the buzzed-in section, which is that big X, yes, there are some corridors to travel, but it's only a 7,000 square foot building, so it's really not that far detached. I mean, I'd be more than happy to see if we can come up with a different option on that. But for me, that that was what made the most sense. I thought that the town manager should be accessible. Maybe if I'm the next town manager, they're gonna say, what the hell is this guy thinking? But it made sense to me, and I will definitely take your comments and.
I mean, how's everybody else feel? I mean, it's just, you know,
Well, I went to Dayton, so when you go into Dayton's town hall, when you walk into that initial hallway, you have one of the offices you see, it's right on your left. I mean, the window's right there, so you can look, and one office is on your left, and one is on your right. One is, what, town manager, or they don't have a town manager.
Let's see, code officers.
Code officer, and the treasurer's on the other side.
Yeah, she's at the end of that hallway.
Yeah,
yeah,
They
you
don't
know,
have a planner or anything.
Right.
Yeah.
They don't have a very big code office.
you know, we have to look at the flow of work, right, on all the different departments, on how they interact, right? So you don't want to put anything that impedes that flow and make his job or somebody else's, every time they gotta go talk to somebody, they gotta go walk down, you know,
I
so.
guess that's one of my concerns too, because the general assistants used to be back where the break room was, and we just needed to make access for a waiting area there, but where it is right now, I mean, Wendy does work in the administrative office area, and she's not gonna know if we need assistance, she's so far away. And it's the same thing that if she needs assistance with a physical applicant, she's all by herself in that corner with no, because the sheriff is only there occasionally. And that concerns me where she's all by herself going off in the corner like that, that if she has a difficult customer. I mean, we always get a buzzer system in or something, but she's all by herself over there. And same thing with accessing the administrative office. When I'm doing elections and stuff, she's in the office because I'm not there.
Well, that's what the intent of that whole area is when she's not doing general assistance duties, she would be working in this area here in the administrative building office area. I don't foresee her spending the majority of her time in that separated room any longer, because now we'll have the space to do it, and that general assistance could also work as additional meeting space when she's not meeting with clients. But in the future, I don't see her spending as much time in, like now she's separated from everyone, and that was the idea of the whole open office area. We could have, you know, two or three desks there so everybody can do their work in that area so that they're able to service the people as they come in.
I just think they should be interconnected a little bit. But, you know, maybe we ought to talk to the folks in Dayton and see how their layout is, if they like it, if there's something different that they would do. You know, we know of other town halls in the local area that recently been built, or recently been modified, and maybe, you know, we can learn from them folks. But, I mean, obviously, these people, so they will techniques, you know their stuff, but.
what does Wendy think of it?
She hasn't seen it, you know, she doesn't say.
I'm not sure, at least for me, I mean, the way this is set out, I'm not getting a real good feel for what you're gonna end up with. Just the way this is, I mean, this is so conceptual, so to speak.
Absolutely.
But before we get too far, I think we ought to bring these concerns that.
Oh, yeah, I agree. And that's exactly why we're gonna have this meeting, so I can take that input, take it to Ryan, so he can try to reconfigure things in it, and the next time we discuss this, Ryan Senator and Will Conway will be here to discuss this with you, and take all your feedback as well, once again, to go back and do another revision.
How big is that lobby? In the entry vestibule, and that looks like it's a pretty good sized lobby.
I don't.
I call it 20 feet wide. I'm trying to break it down in my head.
An inch to a foot, so.
I would say 20 feet wide by 8 or 10 foot. I was trying to get a feel for that town meeting room, and that, believe it or not, it's a small town meeting room, if you kind of do the math.
Right. And we had figured about a maximum standing room of 175 people in that room.
In that room?
In that.
I'm just doing like 60 by 100 gives me 6,000 square feet.
Right.
And if you start deducting
Everything else.
mechanical all the way across, you're left with like a 30 by 40 meeting room.
Yeah, because generally, I know that in Dayton, the selectmen's table is up here in the back of the room, and that's where all the wires come up through the floor to have it wired for sound. So they kind of have a setup where, like this, the table's always in the same place. So even if you were having a meeting there, I don't think their table's built in. You could move it back, but the wires are right there on the table, the microphones and the cameras.
It says it's graphic, handicap accessible.
Yeah.
Huge, huh?
Yeah, that's
10 by 8 probably,
Yeah,
you know?
and with the, whatever they,
Yeah.
yeah, the bubble diagram is kind of, it's obviously, the rawest form, so.
Right. But it shows the flow of everything in the building. And that's, to me, that's the key point, is we want to make sure that that flow, the interaction between all the departments doesn't cause a whole bunch of extra walk-in, extra work, or, you know.
A lot of these offices look like they're the same size or close, and if it doesn't work out well, people can switch around easy enough. You can talk to them back in the place.
We certainly could.
We can put the town manager in the vault,
Yeah, be a good place for him. There's just no other way out.
put him and the planner there together.
Excuse me. Any other concerns?
I would think a circular, it would pull that administrative office more centrally located,
Everything around.
and everything around it, and you could shoot the public
No, we can't.
to the, no. Let me finish. You could shoot the public to their individual, necessities, and just, I think it would flow better, I really do. And then you could kind of consolidate some of these bubbles and increase the size of the meeting room.
So where do you put the administrative office? You bring it forward?
I would bring it forward and then make that corridor go all the way around the administrative office. And then let's say, to the right is real leave it kind of as it is, deputy treasurer to the back right. Simone would have a better feel for, time of the year, what gets used the most, bring that up front. Keeps the public up front, or tax time, registry time. Keeps everybody flowing to the front of the building, and then throughout the rest of it, you could kind of break everything else around that centrally located office area. That's kind of like Kennebunk's second floor of that town lot. It's kind of like a big, huge horseshoe, and there's separate, like town planner, registration, is all the way around there centrally located, and it seems to flow.
Maybe if the restrooms were moved towards the front, that would leave room to put the town manager's office, the general assistant's office, over near the administrative office area.
If we flip those restrooms right around,
Yeah.
then we would have the ability to circulate around that office area.
Any other thoughts, folks? Yes, ma'am.
Can you just clarify, is this a remake or remodel of the existing building, a new structure?
New structure,
And the location of the new structure is?
to be determined.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else? Questions, comments? Okay. Pass the roll on. Okay, next item is to inform Selectmen and others of the National Multiple Sclerosis Society Bike MS Great Dane Getaway, to be held August 10 and 11, 2013, from 8 a.m. until 4 p.m. Just
That's.
gonna close some roads and
No, they don't close the roads, but they'll use, the only portion of Arundel that will be traveled through is Durrell's Bridge and River Road. So it won't be completely from 8 to 4 on both of those days, but that's the portion of Arundel that will be riding.
Are they coming from Kennebunk across Charles Bridge and then towards Kennebunk Court?
Yes,
Okay.
and they do have, they've given me their certificate of insurance with Arundel as an additionally insured. They'll put up all their signs and they'll remove all their signs. The town has not reviewed, but written authorization to run through. No need for a mass gathering permit because I don't believe it will cover a 2-hour
questions, comments, those? Okay. Next item is to inform the selectmen of a TIF request meeting to be held on August 12th, 2013 for Arundel seasonal cottages.
Yes, the cottages are back on the table. Tad and I had a meeting with Joe Paulini and his consultant who is drafting the TIF proposal. I don't have the full actual figures. What they've given us here is a basic guesstimate as to where they would like to start with their request. You'll notice that it will be a credit enhancement type agreement, and I think the most informative sheet that you'd all like to look at would be what's listed as page 5, which would show that in the event that this were approved as presented, the town would get no revenue back from those from the tax increment financing until the 6th year. They do propose to have, if they go to full build in the 20-year total, there'll be about $1 billion worth of valuation in that property. To me, that's a little high, I think. But this is where they're giving us their preliminary projections. I've given you this so that you have some time to look it over, because they do plan to come to the August 12th meeting to have this discussion and do a formal presentation to you. From what we understand in speaking to the state, it is a qualified project. There's some question there because it's residential housing, but this isn't considered residential, it's seasonal, so they go off of the timeshare model, which allows them to, if the town were to approve it, it would allow the state to approve this TIF so that they can move forward. Their major concern with the project is the upfront site costs. There's a lot of upfront site costs, getting water through the ledge, blasting ledge, sewer, septic systems, roadways, things like that, and that's why they're looking for a front-heavy 20-year TIF to try to help them to absorb some of those costs.
You just going into the project right from the start.
You were there, I think, since day one, and this is, I'm going to be candid and say this is typically what happens is a developer will come to the town and say, there's no way we can do this project if you don't give us a TIF. And I think that's what they'll be giving you for information. Is it a beneficial project to Arundel? In my opinion, yes. We made it very clear, and it's my understanding that the ordinances were written that way where it could only be seasonal. And that question was asked several times with Mr. Palumbi. Are you at any point planning to come to the town to try to change the ordinance to allow people to live in these year-round? They said absolutely not. That's not the model we're going for. They allayed a lot of our concerns. Some of the members of the EDC, a few of them are mortgage lenders, who said that we don't lend money for projects like this. If you can't live there year-round, we're not lending money. He does have funding sources that will lend the money. I don't know if he'd be the clearinghouse and it would work kind of like a timeshare where he doesn't sell the units and retains them. They haven't figured out all those little details yet. But he is very interested in beginning in the 2014 construction season, and build out is proposed to be completed by 2019. 259 units that will be going in there, and they're working out the details right now. Initially, they weren't going to be insulated. The building code requires that they be insulated, and they're allowed to be used for 10 months out of the year. There are going to be some cold months. And so they're more than likely, it'll be the buyer's choice, but they'll more than likely all have heating and air conditioning. There'll be a large parcel that'll be set aside in open space, recreational trails, and there'll be access to the eastern trail. And in the event it moves forward, we're trying to secure some access for parking for residents to use the eastern trail as well. And I don't know if this is something that was discussed at the planning board.
Yeah, we had talked about access to the trail. It kind of came up. We knew that the trail was there, and it was one of the selling points of these cottages is that you have direct access to the trail. Now, there wasn't a discussion back then of allowing public to come in and park. We did not discuss that, but that's definitely a good point.
Absolutely. And it was my understanding as well that they're trying to acquire another parcel that's adjacent to this property. And don't remember the exact acreage, but there were quite a few acres that they were trying to acquire from Sean.
From Sean produced it on the other end, on
Yes.
the,
Mountain Road.
Yeah.
yeah, the
Yeah.
Hidden Meadows. Hidden Meadows, because there's an emergency access through Hidden Meadows for this.
Yes, and I believe they secured.
They
that
secured
from
everything,
doing
yeah.
so.
Yeah.
Because it was a repair that had to be done to a section of the trail, or there was a repair that had to be done to the grade, I think, over the pipeline.
Yeah.
And that was part of something that they negotiated, was they'd be able to have emergency access through that back section in the event that something happened and they needed to get in or out of there.
Yeah, Unitil actually, the representative came in on the planning board meetings, and we had discussion with the planning board about it.
This was already approved by the plan.
Correct, it's
Approved
approved.
project.
Yep, and it was, they came back, not last year, the year before last, they came and asked for an extension, because you know how the regulation is, you know, X amount, they have to start, so they came back for an extension because, you know, the market is, right, the industry, and they, so the planning board granted them an extension, just kind of been sitting waiting for these guys. I mean, it's a beautiful project, it really is. But the site itself, that and the adjoining, the site north, which is going to become a commercial, there's huge blasting that has to take place to bring that down to a workable level. So there's a lot of money. They knew that going in.
And they're hopeful that with the economy appearing to be turning, that they may be able to enter into an agreement with Shaw Brothers or Grondin or one of the larger excavating companies around that could use the tailings and be able to, you know, actually make use of that product. So he had said he's speaking to Mr. Grondin. He's got a pretty good relationship with him, and he thinks that there's something that they can work out so that cost will be reduced drastically.
Because if I remember correctly, the intent was to use a lot of that stuff as substrate for the roads and
There's going to be so much of it, from what Joe made it sound like, that they're going to have to export a lot of it as well. They had had a discussion about stockpiling it on the site until some contractors needed it, and he wasn't interested in that because he said, then you know, that moving things through town as you're trying to do new development. So they're in the process of working that out. They're working on a lot of the bugs, but it sounded like in speaking to Joe, that he does have the financial backing to do this. His investors are ready to start work, and they'd like to come back and see us next month to have this conversation to see if the board is interested in doing this for the public hearing, and let the town vote on whether or not we want to for and it still says Kennel Court, and I believe
they added a Rundle to it. It's like a Rundle kind of bump to it.
and I think last time I talked to Joe, it was going to just be a Rundle Cottage Reserve.
Yeah.
Because they did have a meeting with the planning board, and I believe that it was discussed that wasn't such a good idea to have the name Kennebunk Court.
Well, originally they were going to change the whole name and keep a Rundle out of it. You know, they were going to go to Kennebunk Court because of the name and
Does anyone have any questions on the preliminary concept? I have all of the plans at my office that show the type of community center they're planning to build, the children's center, the pool, the waterfall, what the units are going to look like. If you want to see that, you're welcome to stop by my office anytime, and I'll show you those.
So all this is going to do for these 5 years is insulate the increased value from taxation. We're still going to get some tax dollars.
The way they're proposing it, the first 5 years, we won't be any
Tax dollars.
It'll be a front-end credit enhancement so that all that money would get cut back to them.
But right now, we tax them for something.
Right now, we're taxing them on $716,000. So it would be the difference.
That's what I mean.
Yes, so we would still get the $700,000.
That's what I mean. Everybody should know that we're still going to get some tax
Yes.
dollars, it's just not zero.
That the additional value would be captured completely for 5 years, the way they proposed it, and then it would decrease from there.
So through the chair,
Go ahead.
what's the right thing to do? I'm not, throughout the years I've heard a lot about TIFs, but I've never really, it's always been really
Maybe we should have Tad here.
Ted's a proponent of TIFs.
I don't understand.
And he's tried to convince the planning board to push it, and myself and other members have been very skeptical. Maybe because we don't know enough about it.
I'm not going to get Professor Delowe to show up in opposition, but
Did anybody from planning contact Wells at all to see how they did with their summer village? I've spoken to John Carter, the town manager there, and they have run into some issues with it, but overall, the project is better. Was that a tip for them? That it was. Yeah, absolutely.
This type where they didn't collect
That's
the
true.
first like 5 years or whatever.
Yeah. It seems like the same. It's basically the same example.
That's a beautiful.
Is it Hidden Pond? There's Hidden Ponds and Henry Court. That's much smaller scale. Smaller scale.
Yeah.
And then there's another one that he kept referencing that was a larger project in northern Maine that seems to be selling quite well. That developer is a different developer, but they've been selling their units pretty regularly. I believe that one has access to either Moosehead Lake or one of the larger lakes up in
There's a
northern
big
Maine.
thing going on, who's that way?
Yeah.
They bought that for years.
Yeah,
Yeah, Northwood something.
Concrete. I know this will be beautiful, and I think it'll, to get people here, but TIF in itself is just the right thing for the town.
And to me, usually the real question for a TIF is whether or not it actually won't happen without TIF funding. Yeah, I mean, that's always kind of, anytime a proposal comes about and they say you can't do it without funding, you really have to do it right. They'll come in and answer any questions you have. And I ask that you be as straightforward and blunt as you want. Ask them any questions you have because they don't want to. I told them straight up. I said I can't give. This isn't any guarantee whatsoever. I said this has to be voted on by the public, and you have to get all the information out there and answer all the questions that are asked of you if you're even going to be considered for this. And it's there's two different ways to look at it. People are very against TIF, corporate welfare they call it. People are very much for TIF because it captures the value. And I think we wouldn't do as well in the educational funding part because that was taken into consideration when we did cost sharing. Was that the TIF amounts were taken into consideration? They were allowed to use those numbers. Revenue sharing, which is dropping by the year anyway, but you shelter some of your revenue sharing and some of your county tax because that valuation isn't considered when they're giving you the complete valuation. And so, yeah, there were a lot of instances where they do work and there are instances where they don't. If you look at Bedford, for example, with J.J. Nissen, they got a very large TIF and there's ripples after them. So, is this risk?
Over 50 community? 55?
No,
Just the seasonal.
Just seasonal cottages, and they're going to offer a ton of stuff. I mean, it's a pretty impressive, very layout.
should we have somebody look at this on our behalf? I mean, it's going to cost us money, but should we have somebody to tell us is this a big deal for us or not? Or
Yeah.
I mean,
Yes.
some profession. Well, there's got to be somebody who analyzes this for us.
Oh, yeah, there's several outfits that will do it for us. I know several of them. And that, usually that can be part of the cost of doing the TIF is they pay to have our stuff reviewed. But yeah, I would recommend that. We've spoken to them and we've gotten
To Dan's point, I mean, I don't know if this is a good deal or not.
Exactly.
What's the risk for us if we get this or we get something else?
Yeah, exactly. Where they just don't, and that, I asked that question several times. If you don't go with complete build-up, what are you going to do here? And phase one is the majority of the infrastructure with a few units, 30 units the first year, because I think they wanted to allay that fear that they're going to come in and just disappear. Or if they put all that infrastructure in and get all the roads built, that's the majority of the work, and I think that's why they're asking for the upfront money for that. But yes, I would certainly recommend having something.
I mean, obviously, for the town, without the TIF, this is huge tax dollars. I mean, absolutely huge tax dollars. And, with the TIF, it's still tax dollars. I mean, I'd rather say, okay, yeah, let's take the tax dollars rather than nothing, but,
You know all the benefits of, seasonal cottages, we don't have any students, we have, all that sort of stuff.
absolutely.
It's a great benefit.
Well,
Not to mention, in 5 years, we've gained 200 houses
Yeah.
times, let's just say 3 people per seasonal. That's a huge impact on the fire and rescue. And you're not getting any revenue to suffer.
Oh, you are? Oh, for the first
So
5
that's 5
years.
years,
First 5
right?
years,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Mhm.
It's relying a lot on insurance to pay.
Mhm.
And that can be part of the structure of the TIF
Right.
as well,
Right.
is for apparatus and fire department. And before the question comes up, it has been given a deadline as the end of August to have that CMP TIF completed. Hopefully we'll get an answer from the state, and that will also go to fund. Is my understanding of the structure of that TIF will pretty much straightforwardly fund fire. We've looked at all kinds of different ways that we can do that.
Oh, Jason,
Yeah, no,
Yeah,
absolutely.
that's
It's-
pressure on
it's
us.
quite-
Right, and
You're not getting any money back.
I get you, yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, maybe restructuring this a little bit, so that we get something to support the fire and rescue stuff, or,
Obviously, they're gonna ask for 100% upfront, we counter with 50% or, 50% for 5 years, so we're at least getting half that money back,
Yeah.
so that we can do just that.
That's why I think we need somebody who does this fairly regularly to tell us what's reasonable for us to involve. Did you have something more? I'm sorry.
One more question that I'd like to know for that would be, isn't there a certain amount that we can put into TIFs as far as a certain percentage? And if we've got CMP going and we also looking at them, what are we proposing for like the people like with the EDC that is proposing air things around the airport or whatever? Are we limiting how much more we can put into TIFs for other things? If we, I mean,
We're not maxed out.
percentages.
Yeah, we even percentages, we wouldn't be maxed out, we would still be able to do the other areas that we want to. And as part of this TIF, what I would propose is a TIF district along Route 1. Typically what they do is a 8 or 10 foot corridor right along Route 1, so you're not taking up a lot of your allowable real estate, but that would allow for, if we decided to put in streetlights, or if sewer needs to be brought down, or if water needs to be brought down. You have that trench that's designated as a TIF district, so as this money starts flowing in, rather than taxing, you're still taxing the residents, but rather than taxing the residents of Arundel as a whole, this project would be funding those expansions within that district, which is technically only 10 feet wide. But it would also allow, this was, I believe it was 1.5% of the real estate that we were able to put in a TIF district. Only 1.5%, we're allowed up to 5%. No more than 1.5% per single project is allowed, so this would max out that single project. CMP is about another 1%, so that would leave us with about 2.5% of our land. I don't remember, we did the conversion of how many acres are in the town of Arundel, but we have a considerable amount left if we had another area that we wanted to do.
Do you know something about the airport that we're on?
I'm just saying, we just got that whole spiel about, about, business areas.
I heard.
and that's a,
Somebody knows
you have to
something.
fight good for on that one.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll anticipate that meeting on the 12th.
Yeah, I do believe they'll be here on October 12th, and Jim Moyne, who pretty much wrote the TIF rules for the state, is the consultant. So,
Okay. Should we make inquiries of other consultants for us before then, or do you want to wait till after?
I have a list of consultants that we can, I just don't want to send out any estimate costs until we've heard from them to see if it's going to be something to move forward. But yes, I do have something.
Okay, anything else on that, folks? All right. Next item is to discuss with us, the town manager wants to discuss the creation of a catastrophic leave sick time bank policy.
Yes, okay, so this is, yeah, it's a big one. What this is if, let's say, I got cancer and had to, be out for an extended period of time, and I only have, let's say, 200 hours of sick time. Employees would be able to make a donation of their sick time into a sick bank that would be able to be used by anyone in the event that something like this would happen through myself. I don't call myself the HR director, but as the HR director, it would be determined whether or not the person qualifies. There's stipulations as to when they can use the time. And it would just allow for people who run out of sick leave to be able to have other people give them sick leave to be able to continue on with that. There's people here that max out. I hate to use you as an example, Sim, but I'm going to anyway. You must be pretty close to max out on sick time because you've been here for quite a while and you don't get sick.
I lose my sick time.
You lose your sick time. So rather than doing that, we would be able to create a pool of sick time. If Simone donates X amount of hours, and we know how much Simone makes, and an employee Y needs X amount of hours, and we know how much that employee makes, it would be rated by either more than a full hour's time per hour or less than a full hour's time per hour, depending on the pay scale that individual was. Within 30 days, if that sick time isn't used, and there's a couple of different ways to set this up. If within 30 days that sick time isn't used or that individual returns to work, the employee who donated the time would get the option to take that time back. If they didn't want it back, it would sit in that sick leave bank and be there for anybody that might need it. There was, something that came up this week, things that have come up in the past, and a lot of communities are doing this to give people the ability to be able to give away that sick time that they're not going to use at somebody like that. And so I would just want to make sure I wasn't going to hit any major red flags from you folks before I steal some policies and tailor them to the town of Rutland's needs. But I think it would be just another added benefit for the employees in the event that they have something that takes them away from what they're running.
A lot of companies are doing that today.
A lot of towns are as well. Rather than converting it to a dollar figure, you just do it on the hourly time, and it is always going to be a wash because those employees are collecting that time and they're just getting it off.
Anybody have an objection to the kind of proposed policy on it?
No comment? Other than the feel good, is there any incentive for anybody to give sick time, or is it just strictly all?
It would just strictly be on a volunteer donation basis. And that way it would be strictly prohibited to, for me to say to Simone, I'll give you $50 if you give me the sick time to lose it. So it's strictly on a donation basis. There's no benefit other than feeling good that you were able to do something for your employees.
So, is this the sick time that Simone is losing now, presently, would go into that bank?
She could do that, or she could give more than that.
Yeah.
And there would be a minimum amount. You have to have X amount of hours on the books. You can't give more than that. But they could give just what they're losing, or they could give a chunk of $100.
Thank you.
And it's catastrophic only.
Well, I mean, when you say catastrophic, yeah, if I have the flu and I'm going to be out a few days, that wouldn't count. But if it's a prolonged illness that's going to take somebody away from work for an extended period of time that would fall under the Family Medical Leave Act, then that's what it would take. I'm using different examples. Some towns just have the bank with all the hours in it, and they use it whenever they want. Some towns wait until there's an actual instance, and then the employees can donate, not under duress or not, being bribed to do so. They can just come in and say, I'd like to donate 50 hours. And so those are the two different, I'll give you two different options when I propose it, because there's benefits and setbacks.
Does the family medical leave come under this so that it might be a case if it's not the employer, but it's the employer's spouse? Same idea. If you have a spouse or a child who's very sick and you've got to be out of work taking care of that child, the same thing would apply.
Yep, our personnel policy allows for people to use sick time for the care of dependent spouses, children, so it would
Okay.
help with that. Parents, grandparents, there's a bunch of different reasons that you want to use sick time.
And then, the giving of time, can that be done anonymously, or can that?
It has to be done.
Okay.
Yes. Because that, let's use you as an example. Dan, you give time to Jason.
Yeah, I shoot myself in the foot.
Dan gives time to Jason, well then Velma gets sick and knows that Dan gave time to Jason, so Velma's gonna go to Dan and say, hey, well, we need time too.
Yeah.
So it would be totally,
What's the board's pleasure? You want to take a look at a policy along those lines? Okay.
no objections, beautiful.
Okay, the next item is to remind all of us who have not done so to pass in your Freedom of Access training certification forms.
You.
Need a motion to approve the AP and payroll warrants. In front of me. You want to see me first? No, it did. Probably should get a motion to approve those things first. Thanks, Tom. The motion's made to approve the payables and payroll warrant. Any second on that?
Second.
All in favor? So to move on, folks.
What is Harris Computer Systems? What's Harris doing?
That's Trio. That's all of the operating software.
No. Okay, moving on to old business. Review and comment on the second draft of the proposed temporary occupancy ordinance. Did you have a chance to review this?
Yeah.
All right. Exactly, zero.
Pretty much the same thing that I brought up the last time. I'm concerned, and I'm not sure how we can word this, but, you know, with this ordinance, you're kind of forcing somebody that if they want to use their camper for friends, family, they have to be registered. And, you know, sometimes people just say, you know what, I'm not gonna use my camper this year, I'm not gonna register it, I'm just gonna let it sit in the yard. So, you know, we look at the definition, there's two spots, we've got the definition of a recreational vehicle, says they must be registered. Last time I had mentioned, you know, maybe something like it must be a registrable, or something to that effect. And then on 3.4, which is these forwarded documents, if somebody wants to stay, you know, if I got people coming over, recreational vehicle license, and display, you know, you gotta get it registered. And force people to have to register their campers if it's gonna sit in their yard. If they don't register it, you know, is it a temporary, is it a structure, or is it a
Well, if they
recreational?
don't register it, that's where it turns into whether or not it's a structure.
Exactly.
And,
But now you're gonna, if it becomes a structure, it falls under a whole different set of rules. So to me, it's an item that could be registered. I'm not sure how we wordsmith that. but-
nope, and I think what Tad was trying to avoid when he drafted this is the unregistered RVs that have been unregistered for 35 years and just kind of are in a real bad state of disrepair. I think his comment was typically if they're registered, they're roadworthy and they're kept in better shape. But you could have ones that would, I guess you could say, register or hold.
The registration is speaking of conditions.
Well,
Not
Inspection.
campers, because you don't inspect those.
sometimes you don't expect them.
Just come in and you pay the fee.
Right.
Register.
I mean, to me, that doesn't, unless it's a, you know, Class A or Class C, but otherwise than that, a regular tow trailer.
And you'd only do that if someone's gonna be staying in it. I mean, if you've got your camper sitting out behind your house and you haven't used it for the last 5 years, and no one's gonna be coming to stay in it, it's just sitting there, waiting until you decide you're gonna use it again, then you don't have to go out and register that until you're ready to use it. But if you've got relatives coming up and they're gonna be spending time with you in the summer, then it would have, if someone's gonna be staying in it, then it would have to be registered.
And that doesn't speak to any safety feature, you know,
Yeah.
because there's no inspection.
But it would speak to the people who are dropping recreational vehicles off that have reached the end of their useful life, that are never going to be registered and taken on the road again. One of the other post road that comes to mind for me, that now they have a recreational vehicle on their property that they never intend to register, and they have people coming to use, then that is technically not a recreational vehicle. It's being used as an additional occupiable structure on the property. That's where it's kind of, and Ted and I had this conversation because that's exactly what I told him. I said, you know, Sim has, you just, I'm going to keep hitting you again, but you have a camper at home. I wouldn't imagine it's registered. People don't use it. But if it were unregistered in the yard and people were regularly coming to our house to use it, how do we draw that line as to Arundel Auto dropping an unusable pop-up that can just pop up and stay there forever in your yard, where the intent is temporary, that they will be going on the road, they won't be just staying on your property. But I could look more into that, but we couldn't find language that addressed that specifically. Couldn't come up with language.
I think another issue too is, if you have them in a campground, like if you're at any of the right after campground or Denmark Road or wherever, if you don't register the vehicle, you have to pay excise. I mean, you have to pay personal property tax in campgrounds. April 1st, the assessor gets a list from the owners of campers that stay through the winter, and if they're excised, they need to be taxed. If it's not excised, you have the right to charge personal property tax. And theoretically, we would have the right to go in your driveway and personal property equipment like a camper, but we just don't have the facility to do that. And very few towns follow through on that regulation.
Did you have something, John?
I had a question, I just want to say, I was just describing, my question was, so what? If somebody has on their property a camper that they have had for years, have no intention of putting it on the road, and they have people who occasionally come to stay with them, and it's more convenient to stay in the camper than not, whose business is that except their own? We have, your home is your castle, you know. If I have guests and I want to put them up in the barn, I don't know anybody I hate that much, but nonetheless, if I wanted to put them up in the barn, or the upstairs bedroom, or out in the camper, that's my business on my property. It impacts no one except myself and my guests. It is none of the town's business.
this speaks to somebody living year-round in Washington, right, as their residence.
That's not temporary.
We're saying it has to be temporary, we don't want it to be permanent.
But I don't see how you're going, the last time I asked a question, I questioned whether it was enforceable. And
It's enforceable, whether we have the means to enforce it.
well, that was the hang-up, yes. You know, I realize that legally, whatever ordinance is passed is enforceable from that standpoint. Practically speaking, it's not. Unless you have a neighbor who complains, who's going to know? So that
But
takes
that's
me
how
right-
most of our ordinances are. Any
Ah,
violations of ordinances, 90% of them, as the neighbors called up and
okay, we probably don't want to get started on that this week.
Okay.
But I can't imagine that if you had your camper sitting in the backyard and you had guests who were going to come and stay in the camper, that you would say to them, well, you can't use the toilet in the camper, you have to use the bucket because we have a hole out there that you have to dump in, or we have a back house or something for you to use, and you don't have any water, so you're going to have to go, bring your own water. If you have guests, you're going to hook them up with water from the house, you're going to hook them up with some type of sewerage, because you're the type of person who's going to take care of that. That's not the problem. The problem is the fact that if you have those guests and they're going to stay for a couple of weeks, and you don't take care of the sewage, and you don't take care of water for them, then that could become a problem. But the bigger problem is if all of a sudden they are there permanently.
Okay,
And that's where they're living
I'm gonna-
year round.
continue to play devil's advocate here. You're presupposing that I'm a particular type of person, and that I have fussy guests who are opposed to using a bucket and dumping it in the outhouse, right? But again, at what point are you violating, private property, personal space, by having the town impose those types of suppositions, right? If I made, let's say, shall we call them unusual arrangements for my guests, and it's fine with me, and it's fine with them, and it doesn't impact the neighbors in any way, and I'm including a health hazard, all right? I go back to my original question. So what? Now, I grant you, having an ordinance, and I think we probably already do in some respects, that prevents a camper or something like it to be used as a permanent dwelling. The land use ordinance says, one dwelling per 3 acres, one dwelling per 1 acre. There's something in place for that. It doesn't matter what the dwelling looks like.
There's nothing in place, that's why we're doing this.
What?
Dwelling is specifically defined as something affixed to the ground. It's not something on wheels.
Or sitting on a cement block.
We don't have anything in the ordinance today that defines that, and that's kind of what this is.
And the part of
Well, then I go back to what Dan is saying. If you're still talking about a camper and you're requiring that be registered in order to use it for guests, I guess I don't see that. There's a dichotomy here. You're either using it for guests and it's truly temporary, or you're using it as some place where somebody lives full time, which is against the current ordinances as far as I understand it. And
What's there today, that part of it can't be enforced. Somebody living in there full-time, we have nothing today to stop that. So you have a house, and you have a camper, and if somebody wants to live in there full-time.
But then you have two dwellings on one lot.
Well, because we don't. We have something that's not a dwelling.
Right.
But if you're defining dwelling as a full-time resident, I guess I'm not necessarily objecting to the intent of what you're looking at doing so much as I am the complexity of the way in which you seem to be doing it. And again, I haven't read it. I'm going on, what questions are being asked and the answers are being given here. And it looks, on its face, it looks like a very simple thing that's being made very, very difficult. And I guess I also have a question is, how big a problem is this in town? And if it's a one-time situation, we have a code enforcement officer, I would think that would be able to be addressed.
There's a couple of at least 2 situations.
Okay.
But
But our code enforcement officer can't do anything. Sands of time. can't bring an enforcement
Because it's not.
because we don't have something that deals with the problem.
Okay, then I guess my final statement, and I do promise that will be it. When you put this together, please don't make it complicated and hard. Because that's what tends to happen.
So-
The problem with this is trying to carve out enough, the circumstances you described, the campground, the other circumstances where people, even if they have no facilities, but allow your guests to use your house for sanitary provisions and those types of things, that's exempt here. So you don't have to worry about those types of things. We're just trying to address it. It isn't a big problem, and Phil argues with me about this, but we have an opportunity right now when it's not a big problem to address it before it becomes one. I hate dealing with problems when, if we had an opportunity early on to deal with it and we don't take advantage of it, it's no harm, no foul, is it? I mean, put it in place, it won't become a big problem.
And if the vehicle isn't registered, then we should have an opportunity to tax it for personal property.
It's hard to, it's
Yeah.
hard to
Yes.
collect, it's so
There
hard.
may be something that, I mean,
It's hard to collect, it's hard to prove, I mean, they can move it and where is it, where do you, how do you take something for it, like that?
so,
It works, yeah.
I did have a question on page 2 on the 3.2.1 limitations on occupancy. Under B, it says persons occupying the dwelling unit on the property, well, I guess now I read it that way, have granted permission to the recreational vehicle or temporary shelter occupants to use. All right, so that's all right. Now that I read it out loud, I understand what it's saying. And I have another question. Park model unit shall not be removed from the transport trailer?
Correct. Because a park model unit, when you take those wheels off, it's pretty much a mobile home. I mean, it's basically the same layout, the same footprint as a mobile home. So if we were to allow somebody to move in a park model, take the wheels out, and either just leave it on jacks or put it on cinder blocks, technically that is a structure because it no longer has the wheels on it, and that falls under the building. Because I'm almost certain that park models are built on the same chassis as the mobile homes are. It's just that they don't have as much in the way of kitchens and things. It's more like open kind of.
I know we had an issue with somebody trying to move back in town as a residence, and Jim said, no, it doesn't qualify for year-round residence.
And I've spoken to several people from Red Apple Campground that have been there for several years, and their campers haven't left the property in. I talked to one guy, he said 6 years, but he registers it every single year because of the personal property issue. Personal property taxes are hard to collect, obviously, as we all very well know. But to have that registered vehicle, it takes away the ability for the town to step in and say, no, we're going to assess you as a personal property tax. But take inventory, it can be more expensive.
And on page 2, under 3.3, 1 maximum duration, you might want to just remove the word fee. Since no special event shall be exceed 10-day duration.
Are there any other major concerns other than the wording of registered vote? And we'll try to get that in there again.
Yeah. Yeah, I want, yeah, that was something I had on that.
Okay.
All right, I'll try to wordsmith that, we'll bring it back and,
Okay, the next item calls for us to go into executive session, but before that, is there any other business that we would take up after we came out of executive session? So everybody will know we won't do anything else. Okay, I entertain a motion to go into executive session pursuant to Title 1 NRSA Section 405 subsec C to discuss a real estate matter.
Second?
Friday 15th. All in favor?